Okay, how we doing? I've gotten a lot of requests for people, uh, for me to do a lot of these little tutorials on some of the collection that I have. I decided today I just started to talk about bottles. It's a large subject. Bottles, milk bottles, in particular, is a really big field. They start all the way back into probably about putting milk in bottles, probably around pasteurization, 1890s, 1900. But you really don't start seeing the large production of milk bottles until after 1912 to 1915, and it just exponentially gets bigger from there. Milk bottles started out as jars, and they just progressed into the shape that we know them today. Some of the people, Thatcher is famous for apparently being the first mass production of milk in a bottle. But there's another company, I think Leslie or something like that, and they started a jar way back in 1860s. So there were, or 1870s actually. So there were jars put out for milk back then. But this shape that we're familiar with really didn't start until really close to about 1910. Now, one of the early bottles that I have, which represents that time period, is this one right here. It's a Josh C. Ryder from Brooklyn, New York, and you can see the top here does not have a rim inside, which was really developed later on, probably by Thatcher. They developed that little ring that they put the seal in. This would have been a lightning stopper. There would have been a bail on that. You could see a little bit of the rust from the wire. When I dug this bottle out, it was all pretty much deteriorated. And this is a hand-blown bottle. It is not machine made, which 90% of all milk bottles today you'll see are. So this is a very early part. I'd say 1906, 1910 possibly. So, and that is a smaller, and as you can see, there's no ring inside. Now, bottles progressed, and we have another early bottle here, same period, probably 1910 or 12. This is another hand-blown bottle. There is no ring in the middle. There's no ring inside the neck, so it didn't have a seated cardboard cap like the early bottles. This also had a wire bail. You can see where the wire used to be. This is Borden's. These are big players. Borden was at one time one of the largest distribution milk producers in the nation. And this ribbed one is a pretty early one, probably I'd say 1910, 1914. But again, it's a machine-made bottle. As you can see, there's a B for the Borden. It's machine-made. It's not hand-blown, but it still had the wire bail on it. Now, coming over a few years later, and as you can see, this is where you see the seat where they would have put the cardboard, and this is basically the same bottle, almost designed a little differently, machine-made ribs, but it's property of Borden's, and that was a little maybe 10 years after this one. Borden's was famous for condensed milk. During the Civil War, they were famous for that, and it wasn't until 1919 that Borden's got the name we know today. Before it was the Condensed Milk Corporation. And this little creamer here, half pint, was probably used possibly for condensed milk back then, although it was more common to put them in cans. Bottles are all shapes, all sizes, milk bottles are, and they represent different products. Let's go to product bottles. Here's one, probably a chocolate milk bottle. This one, as you can see, it's another New York bottle, Sherbrooke Farms, and it has a little half pint fluid. This probably was a chocolate milk or something of that nature in the shape that it was. Another one that's in that vein is this one from California. It's actually a juice bottle, and it's a Byerly's. And Byerly's, this is a 1940s, late 40s, with the cardboard cap that fit actually over and not in the lip of the bottle. And that's a Byerly's from California. An odd shaped bottle and an odd size you may find is something of this nature, and this is called a gill. It is 1/4 of a pint. This is a Princeton. This is a Rockwood Dairy out of Princeton area, New Jersey, and as you can see, it's a small little, tiny little bottle. It's 1/4 of a pint, and they usually call them gillies. And they're not common, they're very rare. Not every dairy put these out, and they were used probably for heavy cream, I assume. I can't see what else, maybe for lunch milk. I don't know about that, but definitely this is an odd size. You don't find them all the time. Sour cream jars are pretty much an example of what the original milk bottle probably ended up looking like at first. This is a Rise and Levine, New York City. It is, as it does proclaim, it is a sour cream bottle jar, and that would have come in yogurt or sour cream, I assume. Another odd one would be this bottle, and this with the crown top is a Vermont maple syrup, made from Vermont trees. This is a Vermont maple co-op Burlington, and it has maple syrup levels. It has a measurement on the lip, and it has a strange sort of like crown top, and maple syrup, I guess, only went in there. Now, most of these bottles are made from the Thatcher Milk Company bottle plant. If I can find try to find the logo. Oh, here's one. Sheffield, big bottler back in the New York area. Manhattanville is where they're out of, and upper Manhattan. This is an early bottle. You can see it's sort of pink color. It's turning pink, so it is before the First World War. This is 1915, I would assume 1914. And although this is not a Thatcher, but as you see, it has Sheffield right on it, big block letters, big bottler. They started out in the 1880s. Well, actually, they started out as another corporation, and Sheffield was bought out by another dairy, but they kept them independent until the 1960s, from what I gather. And pretty much, that is one small part of my collection. Here's Pyro. I dig my bottles, unfortunately, so when I find a Pyro, it's usually not in good condition. This one was actually in nice condition, but over the years it has sort of faded away. There's a stork, and the baby's actually saying, "Listen, pal, I hope there's a Wells and Leicester milk where you're taking me." And that's a funny line. And but these were popular in the 1940s, and I think, yeah, you see there is a Thatcher design, right? The Thatcher milk bottle logo right there. Thatcher were one of the biggest milk bottle producers in the country. Although I don't know if they kept producing milk, they did produce a lot of bottles. So there you have it. There's a lot of different style out here. I was just showing you one of those Ranson and Levine. Well, here's the other version of that bottle. It has like a chain around the neck, and it's pretty much the same logo, and it's also a Thatcher jar. So milk bottles are regional. Most of the bottles that you see, that you pick up, that have a local dairies, well, they're not going to mean much to somebody who's just maybe one state away, won't even think about it. New York bottles aren't really prized too much within the New Jersey area. We have a bottle which is interesting. Here, this bottle is Hopewell. Now, I don't know where it really comes from. I looked up several Hopewell dairies from many places, and this was a flavoring bottle. Again, this probably had a chocolate milk or something in it, but as you can see, another different shape. But as I said, they were regional. They were produced by local dairies in the beginning. They really couldn't do much with shipping milk in large and long distances. So what would end up happening is that they would just go within a radius of a couple of miles. It wasn't until pasteurization, which was, give credit to Sheffield, who actually was the first milk producer to bring in pasteurization machines from Germany, and their milk was the first to be pasteurized. So Sheffield had a tremendous boost over all the other dairies in distribution in an area. So they became at one point the largest dairy in the United States, if not the world. They produced a bunch of milk. You'll find Sheffield bottles everywhere. They're pretty much worthless. But at any rate, as I said, they were regional. They're fun to collect because a lot of people are interested in the fact that they have the names of the dairies. Some people are nostalgic about finding their family who once owned a dairy, and so therefore they became popular. Although dairies bottles are not my true interest. They seem to be, as you can see, there is a variety of them, but they're not as old as I'd like them to be, and as they became more generic, they became less interesting. These older bottles have character because of the fact that, well, some of the bottlers put a little bit more effort into trying to make them stand out amongst the others, but in most of the time they were pretty common. One more bottle, the store 5-cent bottle. These bottles were universal dairy bottles produced by several different companies, bottle companies or glass companies, and they were used extensively for stores that just sold milk generic bulk. 5-cent bottle was the standard, and you'll find these a lot. Also, a bottle of milk is a bottle of health is another common store bottle that you will find. So there you have it. And like I said, they were regional, so the value of a milk bottle will vary from state to state, town to town. Some of these bottles may be valuable to some. The dings on them make a big difference. This little Gildo will still hold its own because it's just a rare size. You don't see them all the time. There you go, a little thing about milk bottles in general. Thanks again, and have a good day.